Hey, iqkid here to talk about graphing absolute value equations. So the general form for an absolute value equation is f of x is equal to a times the absolute value of bx minus h plus k. So with this, the sign of a determines the direction, so whether or not it faces up or down. So negative being down and positive being up. The size, or how big the absolute value of a is, determines how wide it is. So the farther a gets from 0, the narrower the graph becomes. And then a is also the y factor of slope. So slope is rise over run, so a would be the rise. Okay, so then with b, the size also determines the width. So as with a, as the absolute value of b gets farther away from 0, the graph gets narrower. Okay, and then also if b is negative, it reflects the graph over the y-axis. So if the graph were like this, right here, say these two Sharpies are the graph, and here's the y-axis. If b were negative, it would reflect it over. So then you'd have it where that's like that, and this Sharpie is the other way. Okay. So then b also is the x factor, or the run factor of slope. Okay, and then h is the horizontal shift from the origin, and note that in the general form it has a negative sign in front of h, so when you're doing calculations and stuff, you want to keep that in mind, so the sign will always be the opposite of the general form. Okay, and then k is simply the vertical shift from the origin. And then to find the vertex, you're going to want, for the x coordinate, h over b, and for the y coordinate, it's simply k. So it's the vertex, and it's also the maximum or minimum, depending on whether or not the graph is facing up or down. Okay, so with that, let's look at an example. In this example, we are going to graph this function. So f of x is equal to 2 times the absolute value of x minus 2 plus 3. So step 1 is to write the formula. So the general form, or the formula, is f of x is equal to a times the absolute value of bx minus h plus k. Alright, so in step 2, we're going to identify the pieces. So in this part, we're going to identify that a is 2, h is also 2, because remember it's the opposite sign. K is 3, and b is 1. So h over b and k, so the vertex would be 2 over 1, so 2, comma 3. Okay, so now let's move on to step 3. In step 3, we're going to make a table. So we're going to have, that way we can have 5 different coordinate points. So let's rewrite the function real quick. So f of x is equal to 2 times the absolute value of x minus 2 plus 3. Okay, so let's start with the vertex and let's put that in the middle slot here. The vertex was 2, 3. So let's go 1 above that. So let's go with this being 1 and 0, 1, 0, so 0 through 4. Okay, so with 0, if you plug in 0, that's negative 2, absolute value, so that's 2, so that's 4, 7. And then if you plug in 1, negative 1, so absolute value is 1, 2, plus 5, or plus 3 is 5. So then this is the minimum, so therefore it would follow the same pattern up. And if you check your math, it works out. Okay, so this is the vertex right there. So I always put the vertex in the middle of my table, and in this case the vertex is the minimum. Okay, so let's move on to step 4, which is to graph and label. In this part, I have the graph pre-drawn, so we just need to plot a few points. So let's plot the vertex, which is 2, 3. So 2, 3. So this is the vertex. And then let's plot the other point. So 0, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 5, 3, 5, should be right about there, and then 4, 7. Should be right about there. Obviously these are just estimates because, yeah. Okay, and then you'd want to draw the line going on past that. So your vertex would be 2, 3, and yeah. So let's go ahead and do another example. In this example, all of the signs are flipped and b is a value other than 1 this time, just to make things a little more complex. So let's go ahead and write the general formula. So f of x is equal to a times the absolute value of bx minus h plus k. So then step 2 is to identify the pieces. So a would be negative 2, h would be the opposite of that, so negative 1, k is negative 1, and b is 3. So therefore h over b comma k, the vertex, would be h over b, that's negative 1/3, and b and k is negative 1. Okay, let's move on to step 3. In step 3, as before, we're going to make a table. So let's go ahead and plug in our vertex into the middle portion, so negative 1/3 and negative 1. So I'm going to go with negative 2/3 and negative 1 and 0 and 1/3, just to keep things even. Okay, or keep things at even intervals. Okay, so then let's go ahead and write down the equation. So f of x equals negative 2, absolute value of 3x plus 1 minus 1. So if you plug in negative 1, you get negative 5. If you plug in negative 2/3, you get negative 3. and if you plug in 0, you get -3, and then 1/3, -1/5. Okay, let's move on to step 4. Let's go ahead and graph and label. Okay, so in this graph, if you notice, I did it by, the x scale is by thirds, and the y scale is by 1. That's something to take note of. So the width of the graph is not going to be completely accurate, but I had to do that to really fit it onto the page well. So let's go ahead and plot the vertex. Vertex is at -1/3, -1, so right about here. So that's the vertex. Okay, so let's start plotting the other points. So -1, -5, so that should be right about here. -2/3, -3, so right about there. And then at 0 it's -3, and at 1/3 it's -5. Okay, so then it would just be straight line from there to there, and there to there. And this is your vertex of -1/3, -1. Alright, I hope this helped. If you have any questions or need help with something, don't hesitate to contact me. You can reach me through the comment section or through the email in the description below. If you have an idea for my next video, or need some help with something and it's something I can make a video out of, you can contact me through the email in the description or through the comment section. And yeah, I'll try and make it within the same day, maybe next day, but give me up to like 36 hours to post it. Okay, well, have a wonderful day, and IQ Kid signing off.